Saturday morning cartoons next on Retro Serial. Hey everyone, welcome to Retro Serial. I'm your host Ian C. I'm so glad you could be joining me for today's episode where we talk about growing up Generation X, and this week we're talking about Saturday morning cartoons. Me and Thrash Pondo Ponds talk about what our favorite cartoons are, what our least favorite cartoons are, the cartoons we didn't mind missing and going to get an extra bowl of cereal for, and all that good stuff on this episode. But before we get into that, please let me remind you to do a couple things that helps us out here on the channel. If you're watching this on YouTube, hit that like button. Please hit the subscribe button. And oh yeah, if you want to know when these things are available, hit the bell notification and share this on your favorite social media. Those things right there, they mean the world to us here at Retro Serial, and it really helps our channel out. Those are free for you to do, and again, we really appreciate that. If you're a podcast listener, please go ahead and write a review and leave a 5-star, write a review and leave a 5-star rating as well. And also, if you're interested, we have a lot more content over on the YouTube page. So if you like what we're doing on podcast, you're going to love what we're doing on the YouTube page. So head on over there and get all that extra content absolutely free over there on the page. Let me just make a special request. Now, I know that if you're a podcast listener, you probably hear me trying to encourage you to go over to the YouTube page quite a bit. I'm not trying to pressure you into that or anything like that, but just so you know that YouTube, like when I upload there, it's absolutely free for me to do. For me to do podcasts, is actually there's some money involved with that. I have to pay, the podcast platform people for that. And that's why actually I only do like a few podcasts a month, because it's not a lot of money, but it's some money. And so I'm not able to do like a podcast every single week. It's more than I can afford right now, where on YouTube I can upload all the time. So that's why there's more content over on YouTube, plus that you can do live streams on YouTube as well. So that's to keep that in mind. That's not to say, hey, don't listen to the podcast. I love that you're listening to it, no matter where you're listening to it. But also, if you want to support, you say, hey, we want more podcasts, please hit me up on Patreon, where you can support us for as little as $3 a month to as much as $5 a month. You can join the two clubs. There's the Cornflake Club, and then there's the Honeycomb Hideout, which you get all podcasts and videos at least one day in advance. Well, most all of them. And you can do that even if you're a YouTube subscriber as well. And what else is there? Oh yeah, you can support us on Venmo if you want to make a one-time donation. You can hit me up at Venmo at Singularity_Productions. Singularity_Productions. That'll be in the link. That'll be in the description box as well. All right. Well, with all that said, let's go ahead and get to our program. All right. Hey, everyone, here in the studio with Thrash Pondo Ponds by way of the internet. And we are going to talk to you about some more exciting Gen X material. As you know from watching the introduction, we're going to be talking about Saturday morning cartoons. I mean, it's one of those things that go hand in hand. I mean, Gen X and Saturday morning cartoons, if you grew up Gen X, there was at some point, if you grew up, if you were born between 1965 and 1980, there was some point in your life that you were watching Saturday morning cartoons. That's just the way it is. It's just a rite of passage. At the point we all entered that, at the point we all outgrew that, it's a little bit different for each of us. I'm going to imagine you probably outgrew it a little bit before I did. Seeing that you're 5 years older than I am.
Just about. Yes, I did. Although I had sort of a second renaissance, because later on when I discovered liquid refreshment Saturday mornings, I was incapacitated and would actually watch the cartoons while I recovered, you might say.
I gotcha. Was this
So
college days or what?
it certainly was. It certainly was.
All right.
Yeah. So I had a second childhood before I hit 30, you might
You
say.
were awake enough for Saturday morning cartoons after being inebriated the night before?
Sometimes I was still awake. I had
Oh,
never
I
actually
see.
gone to bed.
You never went to sleep. You just stayed up all night.
Those were the days.
What was the drink of your choice? You know what I'm asking? Like, what did you
Well,
gravitate towards?
beer naturally. That was what was most readily available. But if you want to talk spirits, vodka was always great because you could mix it with everything. But I acquired a taste for gin.
Mm.
An older friend of mine had a thing for gin and tonics, and I thought they were a little more sophisticated than beer. So I started drinking gin probably when I was 19 or 20. And
Mm.
to this day, that is my spirit of choice.
Yeah, I like a gin now and again. I don't gravitate towards it. If I'm going to do anything, it's normally vodka. I normally, like get a vodka and a spritzer or something like that. Have a couple of those. So a lot of people flip out because they know I'm a pastor, but you know what? I'm not Baptist, so
Yeah.
I come from a different tradition that allows you to drink, like Jesus drank, so it's all right with
Yeah.
me.
Not all clergy is dry.
Yeah, that's certainly true.
Yeah.
Um, anyway, yeah, I think there's just freedom of conscience in some of those decisions, and I've always felt like heck, I mean, it's no big deal to me. Somebody wants to drink, but anyway, that's beside the point. That's way
I
off
know.
topic, isn't it?
Yeah, our tangent had a tangent. My fault entirely.
Well, not just your fault. I asked. I was just like, well, what do you drink? I wonder what do you drink. So, let's get started here. I mean, I am kind of interested in telling my Saturday morning ritual and favorite cartoons. But before that, I do want to hear what yours was well, I'm going to guess that probably early 70s is where you started hitting.
Precisely,
Okay.
precisely.
So
In
what was your Saturday morning routine?
Funny you should ask. My folks were still together at that time, and my father worked very, very long hours, but he was always an early riser,
Mhm.
always. And he had Saturdays off. So he was always up Saturday morning. So he and I kind of had a ritual going where my mom would actually sleep in
Mhm.
and he'd make me a couple of Eggos or a bowl of cereal, and we would crash in the living room and watch cartoons. And I remember, I don't know if you've even seen this one. There was actually a Beatles cartoon.
Yeah, I know about the Beatles cartoon. I've never seen it though.
That was one of my earliest cartoon memories. That would have had to have been, I want to say, late 60s, early 70s. But of course, that's the thing about the Saturday morning cartoons. They used to rebroadcast them because it was cheaper than making new ones. So I remember the Beatles cartoon, and I remember things like uh, Bugs Bunny and Friends and Pink Panther. And we would sit there in the mornings and watch uh, cartoons until the scary movies came on. Because in the early afternoon, it was Creature Feature, and they would show those old schlocky sci-fi horror movies. Which, and you're probably already there. My affinity for sci-fi horror, it
Mhm.
started with my father some half century ago when that was again our ritual to watch these old scary movies together
Hmm. Hmm.
on Saturdays.
I know about the Beatles cartoon. But I didn't know it was Saturday morning, and I didn't know like it was an episodic thing. I thought it was like a movie or something like that.
Oh, you're thinking of the Beatles' Yellow Submarine, the feature film,
Yeah.
which is
There's actually a
uh
Beatles cartoon, like
yes,
for
there was
children.
there was a Beatles cartoon show. I want to say it was probably something like 66, 67. But again, I was watching it in reruns. And it was basically your typical cartoon show. It was the Fab Four,
Hmm.
close enough. Animation was kind of poor, but it was their little adventures, and they would get into trouble. One would get into trouble, and the other three would bail them out.
Hmm.
And that was actually one of my first cartoon experiences that I can still remember to this day.
Now, was there cereal involved with this? Did you pour yourself a bowl of cereal?
My father would get it for me. I was always something of a klutz. Um, had a thing for Captain Crunch with Crunch berries.
Mm.
Frosted Flakes were always good, and
Yeah.
anything that turned the milk different colors, things like Fruit Loops or Count
Yeah,
Dracula.
chocolate ones, the Cocoa Puffs would turn it. Then you get chocolate milk in addition to your
Mhm.
cereal. So then you can drink your chocolate milk after your cereal's gone and make it extra sweet. Yeah, that's cool. So did it change? Like, so that's got to be early 70s, late 60s, right there.
71 would be the year I would guess.
Uh-huh. I mean, this is a ritual you did for how many years, you think?
Oh, I'd say probably well into high school. I remember my
Well,
friends.
well, in
Go
the
ahead.
high school, really.
Well into high school. In fact,
Mm.
that was actually a thing. I don't know if you remember any of the late night channels. You were probably too young, but there was something called USA Up all night. That would show again old schlocky horror movies and even like risque comedies, or another show called Night Flight, which was
Mm.
basically old vignettes going all the way back to the 30s to present day, and they would show really cool animation or music videos, that type of thing. And my friends used to come over. We'd have these sleepovers, and we would watch these shows until we fell asleep. And then in the mornings, we'd put Saturday morning cartoons on. By this point, oh, what were they watching at this point? There was something I want to say called Brave Star, I think it was, which
Mm.
was sort of alternate universe
Yeah.
answer to Disney,
Yeah.
and some others. But again, we would
So
kind of half watch it.
this would be late 80s for you.
Oh no, this would be like 82, 83. That was right around
Oh,
the time I tuned
82,
out.
83. Okay. All
Yes.
right. All right.
Yeah.
So,
Early
but
high school.
that would be, yeah, that's early high school. That would be, yeah, it's still like middle. So did you have middle school or was it just junior high and high school?
We called junior high middle school. Sixth,
Yeah.
seventh, and eighth grade was our middle school, and it was
Yeah,
a separate building.
we had middle
Maddox
school
Keys
too.
Middle.
Yeah, we had middle school too. I don't know what happened to junior high. I don't know when junior high got phased out to middle school, but yeah, I always went to middle school. I didn't know, but I just didn't know when that happened. I thought maybe that happened for you. Well, I mean, I was kind of maybe mid late 70s was when I started with this whole Saturday morning cartoon because I was born in the early 70s. So, by the time I'm 4 or 5, I'm definitely watching Saturday morning cartoons, which would have put it around like 77, somewhere around there, 78, no, 78. Yeah. 77, 78, 79. And, my story is really kind of different depending upon the area of my life. So mostly raised by a single mom. And with that came a lot of like secondary parents. So my grandparents were parents to me at times. And, people who watched me were parents to me at times. And even other families were parents to me at times. And then there was a phase there from about 10 to 15 where she was married to another guy who was my stepfather. And so that's another area of my life that's, got to be counted and accounted for. But I remember getting up, and my mom was working. She earned her nurse's degree so that she could provide for me, and even that kind of filters into the story to a degree, like where I was when she was nursing, whose house I was staying at, or whether or not we were staying at our own place. But with that said, I remember she did not like to be waked up because she worked, and so she had to sleep. And so I didn't wake her up. And so the initial stuff that I would do, I would turn on the TV and watch cartoons and stuff like that. And I would wait for, normally there was something besides cereal, like in those first few years, because we were just living, her and I together. And there was normally like some bread or something like that, something I could make even as a young kid, like a donut I could grab, or some fruit I could grab, or something like that. I do remember trying to pour cereal one time, and 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 I couldn't pour the milk, so I put water in it, and it was just disgusting.
Would be.
Absolutely, totally
Would be.
disgusting.
Worth
And
a shot, though.
it
But,
was worth a shot. But I learned my lesson. I also learned really quickly: you don't wake mom up. You just don't wake her up. But for me, um, the first ones that I would watch in the morning were things like Super Friends. That's probably the one that made a big impact on me during that time was Super Friends. I mean, I was just a huge fan of anything superhero, of course, but Super Friends was the total package. You know, you got all of the the people in there and stuff. So I mean, that was my jam. Would have been. Did you like Super Friends or?
I did. In fact, it's funny you mentioned that because my mother also divorced, and we moved to Cape Cod. Now, Cape Cod is a little more provincial than New York, and cable television wasn't, you know, universal at that time. And we got one TV station when we
Oh
first moved
no.
to Cape Cod. We had one TV station, and you had to kind of fiddle with that UHF dial to get it. And thank goodness it was the station which carried Super Friends and Sigmund and the Sea Monster and my favorite Saturday morning lineup. Oh, this is a little before you, by the way. Super Friends lasted for a long time. It started in
Yeah.
'73,
Yeah.
so you would have been a toddler, but I actually remember it. And was was it NBC? I want to say NBC.
Oh, I have no idea. I don't look
I
any of that up.
because even had that jingle they used for years. Tune in Sunshine Saturday this fall on NBC. Got it made in the sunshine. Got it made in the shade. You have no
Hmm.
idea what I'm talking about, do you?
Mm-mm.
No.
Doesn't ring a bell at all.
But in answer to your question, the short answer is yes. I was a gigantic Super Friends fan.
Now, were you now not only Super Friends, but also the Shazam show, the cartoon. Well, there was a cartoon as well, right?
Huge, huge with
Yeah,
Michael Gray, who was just interviewed on Pat's channel, The Golden Rage of TV,
yeah.
just the other night. Yes, I was a huge fan of Shazam, even before I knew that was Les Tremaine,
Hmm.
the very famous movie icon who was his mentor. But yes, I was a huge fan of Shazam. In fact, that was something that was interesting in that time frame. You were seeing more and more live action TV shows as an alternative to the cartoons, which
Oh, yeah, yeah,
yeah, which you could thank Sid Marty Krofft for that,
yeah.
among others.
I remember some of those things coming out. Now the other, I mean, on Super Friends, there were characters I liked and there were characters I didn't like. I liked all the normal characters, the Batman and Robin, the even some of the side characters like Green Lantern and the Eagle people, you know. But it was basically Batman and Robin, Superman,
Aquaman.
and but I didn't like Aquaman that much.
You
Did
didn't
you
like
like
Aquaman? I
not
liked
terribly?
Aquaman. I liked Aquaman.
I know that there's a following out there for Aquaman, and of course with the newer movie, you know, it's kind of made a resurgent to be cool again. But I just remember thinking, I just don't really like. That's when I would go get another, you know, like slice of banana or something like that, or another piece of cheese or something. You know, I just the Aquaman stuff didn't really appeal to me. And but you liked Aquaman though.
Aquaman. The only one who I thought was kind of throwing in was Wonder Woman, and I learned many years later it's because they had really sounded down her character. In the comics, she was a little risque, but they wanted to
Oh,
eliminate that for the kids' comics. So a lot of her more interesting traits were sort of taken out, and she basically, I mean, she was pretty intense. She could certainly fight, but you know, I thought her getup was kind of weird looking. The invisible plane shtick never really landed with me. So I mean, I thought she was cool, but she was never one of my favorites
oh, yeah. Well,
until the live action show later on.
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I kind of, you know, and the fact that, you know, when you're a kid, it's like boy, and you're a boy, it's boys rule, girls drool, kind of a thing. And
I
you know,
suppose there was a certain amount of that.
yeah, I mean, she wasn't necessarily one of my favorite characters either. It's not somebody I really identified with or got too excited to see. But I didn't dislike her. The people I really disliked was those Wonder Twins. That was some lame stuff. The Wonder Twins.
They came
It's
later. and I had tuned out by then. So I mercifully missed that because I thought they somehow cheapened the whole concept. In the first couple of seasons, the Justice League, they were pretty intense.
Yeah.
But these like a shape of, size of, I thought that somehow made it like silly. And it's like you're undermining your own story.
Yeah.
You're bringing down your own street cred.
Right. Well, there was a duo before the Wonder Twins though that was a little cheap too. It was that dog and that guy that looked like Shaggy with the Robin mask.
Mm-hmm.
Remember that guy?
I sure do. And there was a teenage girl who rounded out the ensemble, and she was basically Captain Exposition. She basically explained things to the audience. If the superheroes like were too busy to explain their actions.
Right.
And I like them better than the Wonder Twins.
They're in the whole lump of those for me can kind of could go away, but I mean it was all good. I had an uncle who was only about 5 years older than me, and so he was and we spent a lot of time together when I was a kid. He couldn't stand me, and I was annoying. I was annoying. I know that.
What kid isn't?
I know, especially when you're that far apart. That's like a little too far. It's like a little too close to be a mentor, and a little too far, and a little too far apart to. I don't know what I'm saying, but anyway,
it's a tough age for an uncle. That's for sure.
Yeah. And anyway, I used to be annoying to him, and we used to watch cartoon because there was a time where I was at my grandparents' house. Occasionally and on and off and stuff like that. Just different seasons in my mom's life where she might have been working on the weekends and I had to stay over on a Friday night and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So we would watch stuff together, and he liked more like the sport kind of stuff, yeah. And I just wasn't into that. He was just a little bit more I don't know, into dirt bikes and things like that, and really not more into Legos and stuff, which was all cool, but he wasn't really into watching Saturday morning cartoons, so he would kind of torture me a little bit with it. I remember one gift we got was he and I both got some boxing gloves, and that was the best gift he ever got. He just beat the snot out of me.
I saw where that was going, by the way.
He loved them. I
can imagine. It's funny. I had a cousin who was 5 years exactly. In fact, we used to celebrate our birthdays together. 5 years exactly my senior. And let's just say we had a very similar dynamic.
Yeah. Well, some other cartoons of that era, the Hanna-Barbera, I really didn't. I mean, some of them I liked, some of them I didn't like. I mean, I did like, I don't know, like Captain Caveman wasn't a good one for me. The one with the horse, with the guns. What's that guy's name? I forgot. Quick Draw McGraw. The not the Pink Panther, but the Pink Cat that was on there.
A Snagglepuss.
Yeah, I didn't
stage left.
Yeah, those were not too good. I did like Scooby-Doo. Were you a Scooby-Doo fan?
I was until I realized it was all the same plot. Yes. Until I realized that like a minute and 15 seconds before the end, it was the crooked land developer or the one that nobody was suspecting. Captain Parkins, and I would have got away with it if it wasn't for you meddling kids.
Right.
And one day I woke up and I go, oh my God, this is the same story every single week. And when I saw that, I mean, I would still watch it, but it took away some of the charm for me.
Yeah.
It seemed like it was kind of phoning it in. I do remember Hanna-Barbera was really trying to reinvent itself around the time you were watching, late 70s, because that was when you started seeing things like the Wacky Races or the Scuba Olympics, where they were pitting all of their characters together and even reinventing, or should I say outright originally inventing some. Like there was Dynomutt and Scrappy Doo, and the one that went dum dum dum, So they were trying to reinvigorate Scooby Doo and bring in some new characters for a new decade. So, but did I watch it? Yes, but it was probably
It
a
wasn't that
placeholder
good.
between two other shows I liked.
It was definitely a placeholder. Tom and Jerry, same thing as well. It was fun, but gets a little boring seeing the same thing over and over.
But Grape Ape was good. Grape Ape.
Yeah, the Grape Ape. I forgot about him.
Because they paired them together. Tom and Jerry and the Grape Ape Show were a thing for a while.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh, yes. This must have been right. I'm guessing this was about 76. It was probably right before you tuned in. And for me, that was sort of the golden age of the Saturday mornings.
Really?
That 76 season. Yes, because you know what show it had?
No, what?
Well, it had one live action show, which I'm sure if given enough time, you'd guess, Land of the Lost.
Oh, yeah, Land of the Lost. That was
obsessed with Land of the Lost. But it also had the Saturday morning incarnation of Planet of the Apes.
Oh, was that live action or no?
Oh, no, it was a cartoon.
Okay.
But it came out around that time. It was the animated adaptation of Planet of the Apes. It came out around that time. And of course, to this day, I dreamt of the crossover where the ape soldiers fight the Sleestaks, and the horse soldiers lariat Grumpy and bring him down. I envisioned that when I was like 9 years old, and who knows, someday I might actually do it. But I did love that sort of period in Saturday morning cartoons.
Right. Those were good ones. The Scooby-Doo started getting a little ridiculous. It started getting like when you start getting Scrappy-Doo and things like that, it just kind of loses its flavor for me.
Remember, The Simpsons did a whole thing about that, about how when cartoons sag, they have to invent a new character, and they usually do more harm than good. That's what Poochie.
Just like
Poochie
TV.
the dog, yeah. So I mean, they were fighting the good fight. They were trying to reinvigorate the cartoons, but I think some of those new characters did do more harm than good.
Yeah. But I mean, Scooby-Doo's still going to this day. It's woke. It's totally woke. So I don't know if you ever had a chance to catch anything new on Scooby-Doo. No. Oh, goodness gracious me. It is such an agenda-driven show. Like, seriously, if you get the chance to watch the new cartoons that are on it, I mean, just right and left with just message after message. It's like, come on, give me a break. I just want to have fun. I'm not here to learn about politics. Let's leave politics out of it for just a minute. Yeah. Well, to me, I mean, the golden age for me would have been in the 80s, Saturday morning cartoons in the 80s, because I really think that that's when things got, got cool. I mean, they got cool. We had like Thundar the Barbarian.
Favorite show of all time. Favorite cartoon show of all time. Thundar the Barbarian.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And because that was cool because he had a lightsaber. So what's the plot of Thundar the Barbarian?
Long story short, in the late 20th century, a comet passes Earth and disrupts the atmosphere, brings down the grid, destroys everything. But there's one new addition. Somehow magic gets entered into the mix. Yeah. So what happens is thousands of years in the future, you have basically a new medieval Earth, but with actual honest to goodness wizards. And it's this post-apocalyptic wasteland. It's actually very similar to the cartoon Wizards, the cartoon animated film. And it's all told through the story of this one escaped slave named Thundar, who's right out of the Conan template. And he rides through this wasteland with a very attractive young wizardess and his Wookiee-type sidekick named Ukla. And as you mentioned, he also has a sun's sword, which is a lightsaber if it was solar powered. So having said it all out loud, it's basically Wizards meets Star Wars meets Conan the Barbarian. I'm surprised they weren't sued.
I like that show quite a bit. I mean, that was like a really great show for me. And then and the other ones in the 80s. Now, did you like Black Star? Now, was it Black Star or was it Black Star?
Well, actually, I think I might be confusing two. It was the one where there's an astronaut who goes into an alternate universe, and it's almost like the Snow White storyline. He hooks up with this group of little men,
Yeah,
and
troblets. They're like they're in between. They're kind of in between. Not dwarfs, but yeah, but like the seven. They're like a cross between like the seven dwarfs and hobbits,
yes,
basically.
yes, because again,
Yeah.
we're talking um, quasi medieval type situation, and instead of an evil queen, it's an evil wizard king, and they both fight with a sword that was split in two. And I did enjoy that. I thought it was a little slapstick for my taste, like they were trying to give it a comic relief angle it didn't need.
Mm.
Uh, Conan the Barbarian didn't have a comic relief angle, and it worked very, very well.
I didn't.
But
I
I
don't
did watch
really
it.
remember the comic relief angle, but I could be. I could totally be wrong about it. I mean,
It was little things like that. They were going down a river once and they had lost control, and one of the Tobbits says to the other, "Give me the wheel," and the one at the wheel he rips it off and hands it to him, like something
oh
out of an old Bugs Bunny bit. And I'm like,
yeah,
ha ha ha,
kind of a little bit lame. Yeah, kind of a little. Yeah, a little silly.
overdone trope, as they
Yeah,
would say these
which
days.
you didn't have in Thundar the Barbarian at all.
No, at all. It was actually pretty stoic.
Yeah, a
It was
very
dry.
post-apocalyptic world there. The other one that kind of fits that mold is the is Dungeons and Dragons, the
I
cartoon.
I believe I had tuned out by Dungeons and Dragons. I never watched the Dungeons and Dragons
It
cartoon.
was a little later. I think it was a little mid late 80s. Let's see. Let me look it up here. Uh Dungeons and Dragons cartoon. D
C under D, as the saying would go.
yeah. The Dungeons and Dragons cartoon, the animated series. Yeah, well, no, it was 1983. So was that too late for you, or
Well, it may have been running up against something else I used to watch because back then that was a problem. You couldn't stream these cartoons. If two
right,
rival networks had a show you liked, you had to flip a coin.
right, yeah.
Yeah,
I
and
mean,
that happened a lot.
that was the idea is if you weren't there when it was on, it was you were yeah, you didn't get to see it. That's all there is to it. No, the Dungeons and Dragons cartoon was a really cool cartoon because it was these seven, I think six or seven people who were a little bit land of the losty, kind of got sucked into the alternate universe kind of a thing,
Mhm.
and they each had their own abilities and secret weapons and stuff like that. Like one girl had the cloak of invisibility. The main guy had a bow uh that shot a limitless amount of arrows. They're like energy arrows basically.
Mhm.
And then there was uh, a girl who had a stick, and a wizard. Like he's a junior wizard though. And anyway, there's a little kid who had like a club, like a barbarian kind of a kid, and then a couple others. Um, but but yeah, I mean, it was pretty cool. They had this guy who was a dungeon master too, and that was a little risque because a lot of people were afraid of Dungeons and Dragons. Dungeons and Dragons was the
Mhm.
gateway into
Satanism.
yeah, the occult and
Mhm.
things like that. And so but I never really had a problem watching it. I don't know if my mom knew that I watched it, if it was just on when it was too early or something like that. But but I mean, I never really was told I couldn't watch it. So I mean, it was all cool with me. But I do remember there was this whole Dungeons and Dragons scare that went on
I
during
remember that too. Yeah.
that time. Actually, if that the guy that I interviewed, Dr. Brian McDonald, we talked about that in role playing games in one of our episodes where he talked about the whole scare that happened during that time with role playing games. I guess there's a few, in anything that you do, there's always going to be the fringe people who get too far into it, you know,
Exactly.
and they don't have a life, and so they have to totally live out their fantasy of their character that they made on paper or something. I don't know. Anyway.
Well, Tom Hanks made that very early in his career feature film. It was a made-for-TV feature film. It was called Mazes and Monsters.
Yep.
And it's about a kid who is actually suffering from mental illness, and it causes a psychotic break. And if I remember correctly, it was loosely based on a real story. But in this case, the kid who was playing had a mental imbalance to begin with.
Yeah. Right.
So he probably shouldn't have been dealing in high fantasy already. So when you look at the bigger picture, sometimes it's not quite as dark or dangerous as it sounds.
Yeah.
If you feel, but I mean, it's still something that should be watched. I mean, anything to an extreme is not good.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, and I don't know. I mean, I might have a different take on it now if I go back and watch the Dungeons and Dragons cartoon as I did when I was a kid. But I didn't have any. I don't know. I mean, when I was real little, I had some crossover beliefs. Of course, like I really thought that if I did it right, I could fly. But as I got older, it's not like I was thinking, oh my gosh, I'm a real dungeon master, or I could really do some of these things in real life. I mean, that just didn't occur to me. I mean, I knew that this was just entertainment. I guess for some people they don't have that. They don't have that line or whatever. But can you blame the cartoon for that? I don't think so.
No, you can't blame the cartoon at all. Well, it was a similar problem with Ralph Bakshi, and I think we had this conversation in another post, so I'm going to repeat myself anyway. Do you remember the Ralph Bakshi Mighty Mouse cartoon?
This is vaguely bringing up something familiar, but go ahead again. So I'll probably remember it more as you go along. Maybe like I said, maybe you talked about it before.
Probably, because I think we were talking about adult cartoons, because the Ralph Bakshi Mighty Mouse was one of a wave of cartoons in the mid-late 80s that sort of spurned Nickelodeon's idea of making cartoons for children, but with enough zest so that the adults would watch it with them, hence things like Ren and Stimpy and that type of situation. And Mighty Mouse, Bakshi's rendition of Mighty Mouse, was made for children, but there was a lot of subtle humor that adults would get, so it became palatable for them. They actually do a spoof on Scooby-Doo while we're on the subject. But there's one scene where Mighty Mouse is on a quest, and the girl he's on a quest for gives him a flower, which he holds very dear. And when he needs strength, he would take the flower out and reminisce about this young lady. And the flower gets so old, when he takes it out one time, it crumbles to dust. And when he goes to sniff it, the dust of the flower goes up his nose. And this children's advocacy group says, oh my God, you have Mighty Mouse doing cocaine. And Bakshi's like, oh, no. It was the flower, it just crumbled to dust. But there was so much bad press behind it, the network ended up canceling it, even though it was one of the best received cartoons of that season.
Wow.
So there's some knee-jerk reactions, I think, behind some of these well-meaning knee-jerk reactions. But I think some knee-jerk reactions is sometimes the bigger culprit.
Yeah, and two, I mean, also, if you got to think of it as an adult as well. I mean, as a kid, all you're thinking of is, hey, these adults are trying to stop my fun, and it's just overblown. But if you're a parent, and you just want the best for your kid, if you're a normal parent, you know what I mean? You don't want anything to happen to your kid, bad spiritually or otherwise. So I can understand a little bit of an overreach on the side of parents as well. Just like, hey, I'd rather put the fence up closer and rather than right next to the road. But at the same time, then the kid's going to go, well, I want to go all the way across. So you create that backlash. But what were some of your favorite cartoons of the 80s?
Well, Thunder, of course. Some of these are crossovers. They go late 70s, early 80s. So if that's copacetic.
Yeah.
Speaking of Thunder, by the way, Robert Ridgely was sort of the voice of cartoons in this period. He did Tarzan the Ape Man, which is one of my favorites, and Flash Gordon, the Flash Gordon animated series, which is possibly the best cartoon show produced in the United States. The only problem with Flash Gordon was it was episodic. So if you missed an episode you probably missed something really, really important.
That's a
But
bummer.
the animation was great. The voice acting was excellent. The story was solid, and again, it ran. I want to say for 2 seasons, and to keep a story arc going that long is no small task. But the Flash Gordon cartoon series was excellent.
Mm. I do. I remember that one. I'm not sure I ever tuned in enough to really realize that it was, you know, it was as cool as it was. Maybe I might have been too young too still at this point. I mean, I think I was 10 in 1980. So no, I wasn't even 10 in 1980. I would have been like 8 in, yes, 8 in 1980, something like that. But yeah. Well, another one that was good, I don't know if you ever saw this one, was Zorro. Do you remember Zorro?
I do remember Zorro. In fact, if I remember correctly, they paired it with um
I think it was
uh
Thundar, wasn't it? Didn't it Thundar?
no, they if I remember correctly, they paired it with the Lone Ranger
The
and
cartoon.
yeah, the two cartoon shows.
Oh, okay.
Which I think was a very good match. They're both masked heroes, and but yes, I do remember the Zorro cartoon.
Yeah, that was a cool one. I
It was very
really
well made.
enjoyed the
It was very
Zorro
well made.
cartoon. Yeah, these were the era of cool cartoons for me
It really
anyway.
was.
Like
Yeah.
if you were a young boy in the 80s, and I mean it was really cool. But there were some stinkers as well. I think if we had
Mhm.
girls on the show, I think they might be bringing up some cartoons that, like, oh gosh, I don't want to watch this. I was kind of more fortunate of being an only child. I didn't think so. I mean, I didn't think so. It didn't really occur to me until like I would spend the night at a friend's house who had a sister. And then I'd realize, oh gosh, she wants to watch Strawberry Shortcake, or the Smurfs, or
Oh, the
something,
Smurfs. Oh, yes.
something like that. I mean, those were the most, uh, those were the worst. The worst ones were were the girl cartoons.
My Little Pony.
Oh, My Little
Pony.
Pony, Care Bears.
Although, you know which one I hated the most?
No.
I actually watched an episode. It was like, are you kidding me? The Ewoks cartoon.
Oh
For
yeah.
that one just rubbed me the wrong way right from the get go. Probably because I thought the Ewoks cheapened the original franchise of Star Wars.
Oh yeah. And you were old enough when 83 came out for
Mm-hmm.
that you probably didn't like the Ewoks.
I did not like the Ewoks.
Yeah.
Having stormtroopers fighting teddy bears just diminished the whole conflict.
I know.
And as we've said on several occasions, what were they supposed to be fighting? It wasn't Ewoks.
Wookiees.
Exactly. They were supposed to go back to Endor and fight the Wookiees, which would have been great. And at the last minute, Lucas said, no, 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 no. These Care Bears are selling like hotcakes. I
Right.
think Star Wars should have a marketable teddy bear. So he turned them into Wookiees.
Yeah.
By my tongue, Ewoks.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm like, you
Well, the Wookiees.
sellout.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I know. You can
sellout.
really see his disorder from the very beginning, even in A New Hope, with the Jawas. You can see that
Mm.
kind of there. It wasn't as pronounced there. It was, you can deal with the Jawa way more than you can deal with an Ewok. But
Well, yeah, because they were creepy. You couldn't see their faces, just the glowing eyes.
yeah,
They had these like creepy mugs cloaks, like
Yeah.
something out of a Twilight Zone episode. They
mhm,
spoke in these creepy tones. They were thieves.
yeah,
They went around blasting things. I mean, they were creepy enough that you'd actually get behind them. The Ewoks were just goody goody with their little hang gliders and stick weapons and the Ugg Ugg song. And are you kidding me?
yeah. It was bad. Well, the other cartoon though that was a Star Wars cartoon was actually pretty good. The
Droids?
Ewoks, yeah, droids. Did you like droids?
I never caught it. I
Oh,
never
you
caught it.
didn't. Oh,
Yeah,
well,
I
if
never
there's
caught
an
it.
episode on, it was pretty cool, very punk. Like the guy had a mohawk, the main guy had a mohawk, and I think they went through. I think the droids went through because basically R2D2 and C3PO went like being sold to different people, and I think they were sold in the course of the cartoon. They were sold at least once so one person being the main character to another person being the main character, maybe 3 times. I don't really remember. And one of the guys on one occasion used a lightsaber.
Oh,
So it was pretty cool. I mean, that was the iconic weapon of Star Wars anyway. So that's why I was watching it, watch it for lightsaber stuff. But yeah, that was good. I was actually a fairly good cartoon. The Ewoks were horrible. The movies were even worse. Yeah. Did you watch it? Was there 2 movies or 3?
I only remember the Christmas episode, but not the Christmas episode. But there was a made-for-TV one, and I did not see it. There may have been 3, but I remember there was one and I missed it and wasn't particularly broken up by this.
No, it was horrible. It was basically like about a family that lands on Endor, and they befriend the Care Bears. I mean the Ewoks.
Yeah.
And
Freudian slip.
Yeah, another cartoon out there that was that I didn't like a whole lot. Actually, kind of liked it a little bit was the Monchi Cheese, but not my favorite. Did you ever watch the Monchi Cheese?
I remember the toy line that went with it, but I don't remember the show.
You don't remember? Yeah,
I don't remember the show. Yeah.
I think they had special shirts or something like that kind of gave them powers or something. I don't.
Sounds right. I don't know.
Yeah, but the Monchi Cheese were interesting. They were kind of a crossover. And then the Pound Puppies. Remember Pound Puppies?
I remember the Pound Puppies. I didn't watch it, but a kid I used to babysit for used to watch it. He actually had one. He had a Pound Puppy.
Yeah, these were all cartoons that were just, for the most part, just utter garbage, just show holders that were not so good. So about what year did you get out of watching cartoons? Like, what year did you figure you were too old for it?
Well, again, I kind of hung on to it even when I was too old for it. But what ultimately killed it was, and again, what I did was I started watching other things, or I'd get up and we'd head out early to get to the arcade, or found things to do other than watching cartoons on Saturday mornings. But what finally killed Saturday morning television for me actually was the advent of the VCR. Because when my friends stayed over, it wasn't let's put on the TV, which is all kid shows at this time. It's let's pop in a movie.
Yeah.
Because odds are we had gone to the video rental place the night before, hadn't watched all the movies we had gotten, or maybe watched one and said, let's watch it again. It's good. And we have to bring it back today anyway. So let's get our money's worth and watch it a second time. That wasn't uncommon. So the VCR option is what really killed Saturday morning cartoons for us.
Oh no, that's that. I mean, that's good because if you've got a VCR and you got a movie, you're gonna watch it. Yeah, I think I just grew out of it. I think by the time I think because when my mom went through that divorce with my stepdad, and I was 15 when that happened, and we moved down. We do move down to where I currently live. I think that I was just too old. I mean, I think at that point I was just into partying. You know what I mean? I was just into like going out with friends and staying and running away. I ran away from home a bunch of times. I got in trouble with the law too. Like I got in trouble for doing drugs at school when I was 15. And I was pretty from 15 to 20, somewhere around there. That was a blur. Yeah, I got a juvenile felony, in fact, because it was a stupid thing though. I mean, look, they could have arrested me for a lot of other things that they never did, but the one that they did get me for was really dumb. It was a type of speed, but you could buy it over the counter. It was like truckers could get it and then they would
no-dose.
Yeah, kind of like a no-dose, but it was a little bit stronger. But the law was where I was from is you couldn't take anything, any kind of medicine, even aspirin. It was a felony to take an aspirin at school without parental guidance or any kind of. And so when they found out that I did that they just pressed it. I got like a bunch of work hours and stuff like that. And we had to hire an ACLU lawyer too. Yeah. Cause it was, cause where we were was like highly LDS and we weren't LDS. And so they're kind of being a little bit more mean to us than we thought. So we had to hire an ACLU attorney.
You could say they flipped their lids. LDS lids. Yeah. Sorry, Dave. That was a joke.
No. It wasn't as progressive as it is today down, where I live. But But anyway, uh, we're way off Saturday morning cartoons now.
Dude,
But
I know, really. But this was interesting. So,
uh,
an interesting side note.
yeah, but I just kind of grew out of it. I was still, what's crazy though, is I was still an early riser. Like you were an early riser as well, weren't you? Or no?
No. I'll be honest with you.
Oh,
No.
okay.
Well, because we would be watching TV sometimes till 2, 3 in the morning.
Yeah.
And it's tough to be an early riser when you're up till 3 in the morning. Usually you crawl out of bed around noon. If I knew I had something going on, like if we had plans to head to the couple towns over where the arcade was, or if we were meeting up with girls, girls. We would get up early because we had plans.
Right.
But if we had no plans, it was Crash City on Saturday mornings.
Oh, really? Yeah. I'm a natural early riser. Like I'm naturally an early riser. Like even if I go, I'll crash in the afternoons. Like serious. Even today, I still kind of have the same schedule as I did when I was a kid. Like I'll wake up pretty early, and I'll go and I'll crash in the afternoon. Then I'll stay up late, and then I'll crash out for a few hours. And so even as a teenager, though, I do remember still like waking up before my friends, and I was annoying because I had friends that were, like that. They all wanted to sleep, and I'm awake. I'm awake, and I'm like up talking to their parents. So it was kind of an interesting time because I'd be down talking to their parents, I guess. I remember doing that. I had one friend who was an early riser as well, but yeah, but you don't stay at the same friend's house every night or have them stay over at your house every night. But there are some other cartoons worth mentioning. I mean, there's no way we can't. Okay, so I don't know if He-Man was Saturday morning or not, but that show was stupid. Man, that was the worst. That was the worst show I have.
It was a commercial for a toy line.
And
every time they wanted to bring out a new toy, they invented a new character.
Yeah. Well, and it wasn't cool at all. It wasn't as far as all the sword and sorcery cartoons out there, the worst sword and sorcery cartoon was He-Man. You agree, right?
Well, just say I never got into it. I never got into it. So yeah, I do concur.
It was the lamest comedy, the poorest writing, the poorest animation. They would use the same clip over and over again and just change the background. I know that was kind of common for a lot of things, but we just noticed it for He-Man. Like anytime he would get on his battle cat, it would be the same thing. He'd go like this, and then he'd turn, and then he'd run and get on the battle cat. And it didn't matter if the cartoon was a year apart, so he's had a year of different adventures. It was the same to get on the battle cat, or he'd run away the same way. They would just change the background is all. So that was the dumbest cartoon. I couldn't stand that cartoon. And talk about a disappointment, because that's nothing what you thought it was going to be like, because the He-Man action figures came out before the He-Man cartoon, I believe. And
no, you're right. You were right.
The He-Man action figures looked cool. I thought we were going to get something really awesome, and they weren't. They were just so dumb. They were just so dumb. But there were some other cool cartoons. There were some other cool ones. Go ahead. What are you going to say?
There certainly were. And again, I don't want to gloss over some of the live action shows. We already mentioned Land of the Lost, but there were a plethora of others. Like this one, it was all done in voiceover, so I don't know if it really counts, but I don't know if you've ever seen this. There are some episodes on YouTube and whatnot. It's called Lancelot Link, Secret Chimp, where they took it was a secret agent show, but all told through these chimpanzees, and they would dress chimpanzees up and overdub voices, and they would have these like adventures, usually trying to smuggle secret plans in or out, or the bad guys were trying to take over the world. And there was this good guy whose name was Lance Link, who sounded remarkably like Peter Falk, or doing a rendition of Bogart. And it was just trippy, and it was very, very funny. And I used to watch it with my dad. But of course, later on, then you had shows like The Kids from Caper, or the Croft Super Show. which was more like a kids variety show where there would be small vignettes. That's where you see like Electro Woman and Dinah Girl and that type of
Oh,
thing. And
I remember Kids Incorporated.
that was later. In
Okay.
fact, that wasn't that prime time.
Was it prime time?
I thought Kids Incorporated was prime time.
It was either afternoon cartoons or I don't remember it being prime time or a Saturday morning. I remember seeing it on afternoon. Wasn't there somebody that famous that came out of there?
Well, Marquita did.
Marquita, that's right. Yeah,
She had a one-hit wonder, but also Fergie.
Oh,
Fergie was in the. I want to say she was in at least the last season, but she came and she was the youngest. I think she was like 9 or 10 at the time, but she's probably the biggest star that came out of Kids Incorporated.
I don't remember that. I remember a little bit later on when I was out of cartoons that Saved by the Bell was coming on Saturday mornings, which was kind of a live action made for kids thing like that. A lot of those other ones you're talking about, I don't remember at all. Like the chimp one.
That one was again from like 1970. Oh. So I'm going way back. And of course the Hanna-Barbera ones too. You have HR Puffin stuff, Lidsville, the Bugaloos, those type of thing, which is basically live action, but done almost as a live action puppet show, which I thought were kind of trippy.
Well, there are a couple cartoons that I probably normally wouldn't have liked, but I did like. So one of them was Gem and the Holograms. I thought that was pretty cool. I liked their music back then. I was like, oh, this is pretty cool music. I could get into an album of Gem. And then one that I'm sure that you know about is Kid Video. Did you like Kid Video?
Is that the one where it's the kids that go into the alternate universe?
Yeah, and they play songs. They're kind of like a new wave band. Their music was actually not bad.
Pretty good. Yes. Robbie Wrist was one of the characters, Cousin Oliver. Yes, Cousin Oliver. I do remember Kid Video. Yes, I do remember Kid Video, and it was kind of entertaining. I didn't watch it faithfully, but I do remember it.
Yeah, I watched that one pretty faithfully. I liked it. What are some other ones out there? Well, I don't know. There's something. Oh, Pac-Man. Pac-Man
was funny. I do remember Pac-Man was funny. In fact, I can't think of the actor's name to save my life, but he had been around forever. He's married to Shirley. 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 The mom from Partridge Family. Shirley Jones.
Shirley Jones, yeah.
Married to Shirley Jones. He was probably best known. He was Dick Van Dyke's army buddy in the Dick Van Dyke Show. So whenever they do flashback episodes, you'd see him. He actually asked out Mary Tyler Moore first.
Interesting.
He was so off-putting that when Rob Petrie asked her out later, she was like, no, thank you, because she thought, oh, you're his friend. No, thank you. There was a whole subplot with that. But yeah, he did the voice of Pac-Man. He also did the voice of Beagly Beagly from the Gray Babe cartoon. And I'm so ashamed of all these credits that I can't think of the man's name to save my life.
Yeah.
What about the Mutant Turtles?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I love the Mutant Turtles. They were kind of a late 80s, weren't they? Late 80s, early 90s? They
certainly were, but I collected the comics.
Yeah.
I still have I've sent a bunch of them down to my nephew because he's discovering comics now too. But the big claim to fame is, of course, I'm a New Englander. The two of them, I believe they met in UMass, Amherst, but both of them were from Massachusetts. Cool. And it started out as this like local comic book that was being printed locally, and then it exploded and made the global, forget national, the global market. But I remember I was reading Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles before most of the comic popular. Before it was popular. Yes.
Right. Yeah, I think there's a Netflix special on the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. There were talks. I think it's like the movies that made us, or the toys that made us, or something like that. And it talks about the two, and it was like the first. And it actually the show, the documentary series, got them together for the first time in, like, I don't know, 30 years or something like that.
Because they kind of had a drama between Eastman and Laird.
Yeah, they had some falling out over whether or not what direction they were going to go in. And one person was the other person felt like he was following the money a little bit more than the idea of the comics.
And he was.
Yeah.
But he made enough to buy his own planet. So you can't really fault him for selling out, can you?
No.
I wish I could sell out. I'm sorry.
I wish I had something to sell so I could
Wow.
sell it out,
First things last, I suppose.
Right. Yeah. No, there are so many great comics out there. I'd mentioned a few of the other ones that weren't so popular, like the ones that were based on TV characters, like the Gary Coleman show. That was one of them. I never
Kid
really
and Play
watched
was
that
another.
one. Which
New
one?
Kid and Play had their own. New
Oh,
Kids
did
on the
they?
Block had their own. Yes.
We're getting into I think we're getting into the 90s now. By the 90s,
late
I
80s,
was
yeah.
I was dropping out. I do remember New Kids on the Block. Did New Kids on the Block have a cartoon?
Lasted one season.
Oh.
It lasted one season, and it was either MC Hammer or Kid and Play that bumped them. Like their cartoon was dropped for another musical celebrity. So we probably are talking close to 90 by this point.
Yeah, by 90s, I'm out of it. I'm missing it.
Oh, and of course, who could forget the it's the WWE now, but it was the WWF. The WWF had its own cartoon series for quite some time. It wasn't very good though, but they did have it.
They had what? They had a cartoon series?
A cartoon series, yeah.
Oh, you mean based on the
characters in the WWF?
Oh, really?
They did Saturday morning cartoon caricatures of them. And it was pretty phoned in. It didn't last long.
Wow.
But yeah.
Interesting.
Danny Staten probably remembers that.
I'm sure. Well, I don't think any mention of the Saturday morning cartoons would be complete without mentioning things like the GoBots and Transformers. Did you watch those or no?
I watched and I was in college, I think at this point. I watched the Transformers movie in the theaters. I went to the cinema and bought a ticket to watch it.
Yeah, I did.
For some reason, the GoBots I didn't warm up to. I thought they were like cheap copies of the Transformers. The irony being, the GoBots were first.
Yeah, the GoBots came out first. Yeah,
but I love the Transformers. Although I got to tell you, I was always a bigger fan of the Decepticons. I thought the Decepticons were cooler.
You were a bad guy. Were you the guy that got the bad guy toys?
Oh, obviously. Oh, definitely. I was a Darth Vader over Luke. I was a Cylon over Starbuck.
Really?
Well, Starbuck was cool, but I loved the Cylons.
That would have been interesting. That would have been because I was always on the light side. I was always, Luke Skywalker and Apollo from Battlestar Galactica. And all those things. I never had any Battlestar Galactica toys though, unfortunately. That's a bummer. Did you ever have them?
No, Battlestar Galactica. No, I didn't. I had plenty of Star Wars toys, but now that you mentioned it, I never had anything Battlestar Galactica. Huh.
I'll tell you, the bad guy toys that I did have was I had some G.I. Joe bad guy toys because they just look so cool. They looked the Cobra with the face shield, with that the blue and the face with the silver face shield. I thought that just looked awesome. And then Storm Shadow looked awesome. I wanted to be a ninja, so I mean that looked awesome. So I would have bought on G.I. Joe, I kind of was a little of both. Little good guys, little bad guys.
I can see that.
But just because they looked so darn awesome, Anyway. Well, all right. Well, I think we're coming up at the end of our program here.
That hour flew by, didn't it? Wow, that really
totally flew by. Thrash, where can people see you on the internet?
You can see me at Thrash Pondo Ponds on YouTube. I'm sure there'll be a link. You always put a link on. Yep. I just had my 100th subscriber extravaganza. I reviewed in a 24-hour period 100 films. 100.
You were busy. Busy.
I mean, I call them rapid fire reviews, but there were 100 reviews broken up into 10 parts, and I recommend all of them. The funny part was they were all chosen at random. I just grabbed a bunch of movies out of my collection, got to 100, and just went, "Oh, this is good. Oh, this is that. Oh, this." So it's like boom, 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 boom.
You weren't
And
being too too discriminating by the end there, or what?
no, I thought that would be the fun. I mean, anyone can review 100 things they like.
Oh, I see.
I
All right.
literally threw 100 things at me
I see.
and just gave a reference. That was my personal collection. So naturally, I liked virtually all of them, but it had an impromptu feel, or at least I tried to give it that. Oh, and of course, tonight I'm actually experimenting with my first live broadcast. All are invited.
Oh, you are.
Yeah, I'm doing a solo live
Oh
broadcast. All
gosh.
invited, yes.
Oh, I feel bad. I'm not going to be able to make it. I got things. I'm so sorry, Thrash.
Well,
Know
no
that I'm
worries.
there in spirit.
Well, thank you. And of
Okay.
course, I'd invite everyone else, but of course, by the time you post this, it'll be too late. But I'm going to consider all of you who don't make it will be there in spirit. And thank you, Ian. See, I
Yeah,
appreciate it.
yeah. I feel really bad. I didn't. When did you announce it, or did I?
No, I was actually going to do it last night as a surprise, but
Ah,
YouTube does this thing where you have to wait 24 hours to authenticate your channel. Don't fully understand it myself, but that's what they told me. So I won't be able to do anything until tonight. So I cleared it with Dave. I said, Dave, since we're not doing anything tonight, would you mind if I did? And he goes, go for it. So don't
mm,
want to step on any toesy woesies. So
yeah,
yeah,
for
I'm
sure.
now I don't even know if this thing's gonna post. It's totally impromptu. It's probably gonna crash and burn like everyone's first live stream does.
Yeah, mine
But
did. Mine was horrible. I didn't even know I had to click on my own picture. It was just a black screen. What's going on? Yeah. Anyway, it
so
was
but
it was bad. Well, cool. Let's hope. I mean, let's hope it all goes well. I hope everyone
Dropsy.
shows up. That's going to be awesome. And by the time this goes out, nobody's. I mean, it's going to be over and gone. I mean,
Exactly.
this is not going to be done for a couple of days at least. But we'll be talking about the Saturday morning card. I'm going to try to get it done today, and then it'll be up for the honeycomb hideout in the next 24 hours, and then the day after that it'll go live for everybody else, both podcasts. So everybody, you know what to do. Go to Thrash Pondo Pond's channel, subscribe to his channel. Real quick, a couple things that I got going on here. I just made contact with a guy who has a channel called Action Figure Grader, and he mostly does vintage Star Wars. He does modern Star Wars toys, but mostly vintage Star Wars toys. And he's expressed interest in me being on his show and him being on my show. So that's going to be awesome. So that's going to be coming up. Also the live stream, you know, if you want to talk about your favorite Saturday morning cartoon, head on over to YouTube, get on the live stream. Now I do have, I'm going to announce this at the beginning, and then I'm going to make it another announcement here at the end. This is for the podcast listeners only. You may feel like I'm trying to go coach you over to YouTube. I'm not. I'm really happy that you listen to this wherever you listen to this, but you do have to know something. There's more content on YouTube, and not just because it's YouTube. It's so YouTube, like, I can upload this stuff for free on YouTube. For me to do a podcast actually cost money, and they charge by the data, and you buy so much data in order to charge, you know. And right now it's not a lot of money. I mean, I'm spending like $50 a month, but that's why I only do like 3 podcasts or whatever. And then that's it, because that's all I can afford to do, really. That's why there's more stuff on YouTube. It's just YouTube allows you to do that over there for free. So if you like what you're hearing here, you're welcome to go over to the YouTube. There are actually more, I believe there are more podcasts there as well as other YouTube friendly stuff, just so you know. And also, if you want to help out, let me know, because you can, you know, you can send Patreon and then send me, say, hey, make sure this goes toward, you know, like if you say, hey, make sure this goes toward the podcast, I will certainly do that. You know, I'll certainly do that. The only other way out of that you can kind of do is if you go to Patreon and then you sign up to be in the Honeycomb Hideout, you'll get the podcast early. You get everything, you know, at least a day in advance, and I don't have to wait. I can publish there without having to pay as well. So if you're a podcast listener and you're like, boy, I wish you would do more podcasts, that's the reason why. It's just that it's cost money. And right now, like on Patreon, I'm only making like, I mean, and I'm thankful for everybody who supports me on Patreon. Don't misunderstand me. It's totally awesome that you do. But right now it's like 20 $2. So that's not even the $50 I'm spending every month to do it. So a lot of this is just, quite honestly, for the love of the project and just out of my pocket. So if you want to help me, you're welcome to help me. I appreciate, this isn't me begging for money. This is just letting you know what the situation is and why there's not as many podcasts as there are YouTube videos. So with all that, you make the judgment. If you want to support, you can go to Patreon. Link will be in the description below. If you want to make a one-time donation, you can make it on Venmo at @singularity_productions. So thank you very much for watching or listening to this. If you're watching this on YouTube, you know what to do. Thumbs up, subscribe, share on your favorite social media. If you're listening on podcasts, write a review, leave a star rating, and share it on your favorite social media as well. So, all right, folks, thank you very much. You guys stay safe out there. Not only stay safe, but stay retro.
Peace.